Welcome to another episode of the Learning from Leaders podcast. On this episode, we're going to be talking about goal setting. And this is actually based on a LinkedIn Live that I did about a week ago in regards to goal setting. And I spend a lot of time in this with the clients that I have in terms of helping them to either set goals for themselves or to help those people that they work with or work for them to help them set goals. And the title of this one is about 6 proven pillars to achieve your goals in 2024. And although I'm going to talk about these 6 pillars, which to me are get set, we're going to talk about a few more. And those really are going to be much more foundational, again, in terms of some of the research that some of the things that we can do that if we do these on a consistent basis, they increase the likelihood that we're going to achieve whatever goal it is that we set. Why get set? We're going to talk about that. And I'll give you a little Seinfeld episode here. Also, what is the science? I think I mentioned I want to talk about some of the research that's out there that we know that when we do these things, they improve the likelihood that we're going to achieve our goals. The next, we're going to identify set goals, and then we're going to really talk about what the impact of the get part of the set is. So first off, for those of you that might be familiar with Seinfeld, there was an episode at one point where Jerry had registered or gone online and reserved a car, a rental car. And when he goes to the agency to pick up the car, they don't have the car for him. And he goes into this whole sort of piece about how they're really good at taking a reservation, but they're not very good at filling a reservation. I think goal setting is very much the same way, that we can be really good at setting goals as we're in January here, right? How many people go to the gym and have the best of intentions and all of a sudden it falls off? The problem is that we're not great about achieving the goals that we set. And that's really what this is going to talk about is the science behind not only how do we get more effective at setting goals, and we're going to talk about that in the set model, but also how do we close the gap between setting the goal and achieving the goal? And that really is what this is going to be about. So again, I mentioned I wanted to give you a little bit of a foundation. One of the pieces I wanted to just mention is that writing down, how important writing a goal down is in regards to increasing the likelihood that we're going to achieve it. So this was in Journal of Applied Psychology. It was a study that what they looked at is when people wrote down their goals, there was a likelihood of 42% increase when they were written down. I think that's really important for us to think about, just writing it down, how important that is. And I know myself, when I write things down, oftentimes it gives me an opportunity to also take a look at what I've written down and maybe make alterations to it. And again, refine this thing. So that's the writing part. We know that's important. The next part is about accountability and specifically finding others around us as accountability partners that we can utilize and leverage to help us achieve our goals. And we know that, again, when we look at research, this one was in Association for Talent Development. What they found was that when individuals reached out to people that they've committed to, there was a 95% chance that they'd achieve their goals based on having that accountability partner versus only about 65% of those that didn't. We're going to talk about that a little deeper in a minute. So the next thing we talk about is what type of goals do we set? Easy goals, moderate goals. A lot of research out there that speaks to this is that when we set challenging goals, specific and challenging goals, that the likelihood of us following through on those are far greater. And then the last one, this was out of Ohio State University, and what they explored was what about telling other people? And specifically what they looked at was, who do you tell? If you tell people that you respect, that you have high value of, that the likelihood of you following through on your goal and achieving your goal is much greater. And we can think about this. It seems pretty logical, right? If I tell somebody that I'm going to do something, especially somebody that I respect, the last thing I want to do is run into that person, Sue or Jim, and have them ask me, hey, Patrick, how are you doing on that goal that you set? I know that was pretty ambitious, what you said you wanted to do. And then I have to say to them, oh, you know what? I actually didn't do that. I gave up on that. I don't want to. I'm motivated because I respect them and telling them is important to me. What's interesting is that when people put their goals out on social media, that might not be powerful enough. And the reason being is because when we tell people on social media, a lot of those people we probably don't care about in the big scheme of things. It is a general announcement that we're making as opposed to this is somebody that's important to us. So moving on, the last part of this, habit formation, so important. We hear about 21 days as the magical number. There really isn't a lot to this. There's no science behind 21 days in particular. There is research in regards to habit formation. And one of the studies that I've mentioned here, it was in the European Journal of Social Psychology. What they looked at was habit formation happening anywhere between 18 and 254 days. And on average, It was at about 66 days that we reached what was called automaticity. Why is that important? It debunks the myth about 21 days, but also lets us know that this is 2 months that we need to do this before we're going to start to see a habit. And oftentimes we give up too early. So the need for us to create a habit will take time. And the only way we build that habit is by doing. You can't start something today and then 66 days expect to have it be a habit if you haven't done it on a regular basis. So now we're on to the set part of this goal. We'll reverse these. Even though we're calling it get set, we're going to talk about set first. And set is really about creating this environment where we're doing three activities. We're writing a goal that's specific, we're writing a goal that's emotional, and we're writing a goal that's time bound. So if we think about this from the standpoint of specific, if we're going to talk about being healthier in the new year, to just say I'm going to be healthier this year, or I want to be healthier, that's too vague. It needs to be more specific. So it could be something along the lines of, I want to lose 10 pounds. So that now we're specific in that goal. The last part I'm going to touch on next is that it needs to be time bound, that I need to say, okay, I'm going to lose 10 pounds and I'm going to achieve that goal by a certain date, June 1, May 1st, whatever that might be. But there's a date attached to this. So I can't just keep kicking this thing down the road. I have to set a date, be specific, and then work off of those two. Now, the middle one, the E here, the emotional part of this, I think is most important. And for those that might be familiar with like SMART goals, here's where I think SMART goals is less than effective. There's no real drive or emotional component to it. So when I think of goal setting, for those of you that might be familiar with root cause analysis, where you ask 5 whys, to me, we do the same thing for goal setting. There's a root cause analysis to why we want that goal. So for me, I think of it the same way. If I'm looking at losing 10 pounds, why do I want to lose that 10 pounds? And we'll look at it as an example of that in a minute. If we were talking about a personal goal, I want to lose 10 pounds, and we'll just stick with that part of it. Why do you want to lose 10 pounds? I want to lose 10 pounds to be more physically active. Why do you want that? Because I want to be able to play soccer with my kids without getting winded. Why is that important to you to play with your kids like that? Because I want to be involved in their activities. Why is that? Because I want to build memorable experiences with them. Why is that important? Because I want to build a stronger relationship as they grow into adults. And I know that if I don't do that now, it's going to be a lot harder for me to build that relationship later on when they're out of the house. So you can see now we've talked about 10 pounds. It's not really about 10 pounds. This is about a relationship with my kids as to why this is so important. And the reason that is important is I'm sure you're all listening to this thinking that makes sense, right? This is a real drive. This isn't about 10 pounds. This is if I come into the kitchen and there are oranges and Oreos there, I'm going to choose the orange because I know what the goal is here, why I want this, why it's so important. We can do the same thing for a professional goal. I want to get promoted. I want to get promoted from this role to this role. Well, when do you want that? I want it to be in the next 12 months. Why do you want that now? Again, same thing. Higher salary, improve standard of living, be able to afford better education and healthcare for my kids, to give them more opportunities that I didn't have, and just to provide for my family. So now again, this drive is more about something than just I want to get promoted. So hopefully those in those times where it's not going well, this is the thing that keeps me there. It's like the mortar between the bricks is how you can look at this. That's the set part. What about get? Why is that important? And again, I think this to me is even more important long term in terms of what we need to do. Because hopefully, if you've set challenging goals, you're going to run into challenges. And I would argue that if you're not running into challenges, then you probably haven't set aggressive enough goals. This to me is like a vitamin. This gratitude piece is that every day as I'm working toward my goal, I'm grateful for where I am in the process, in the journey of this goal. And the reason that's important is because, again, if there are challenges or when those challenges occur, then what I need to be able to do is to look at what those challenges are and find ways to be grateful for them. Why is this setback going to benefit me? Right. And if you think about that, if I think about why this setback is going to be important to me, it changes how I approach the goal. Without question, to be grateful for the challenge allows me to look at what's the benefit of this. But as part of this gratitude piece, we talk about what are the benefits. There are a number of different ones. I've listed five here. There are certainly more, right? It enhances our optimism, increases our chances of resilience, improves our focus, strengthens our determination, and then I think also it boosts our well-being. We know there are so many different studies that are out there in regards to the benefits that practicing gratitude on a regular basis has. And I think it's even more valuable if we can really refine it specifically to the goal process that we're on. How are we grateful for this journey? Now, with that, I think also you need to have expectancy, and that's the E and the get part of this. And to me, gratitude and expectancy is like a dance that we need to have. So I'm grateful for the journey. I'm grateful for where I am right now, but that does not take away my ability to also expect or want more. And I think that can be confusing at times. People think if you're just going to be grateful for things, then basically you're giving yourself an out. You're going to take the easy way. That's not it at all. I'm being grateful for the journey, but also I fully expect that I'm going to get to where I want to go. Fully expect that. So think of it this way. This is our second daily vitamin when we're doing this. What are the things that we can do in terms of expectation? Visualization is one of those. We know there's so much research that's out there, especially athletes or high performing individuals will often visualize. They expect, they see it in their mind's eye. Quote that I have referenced before is to say that success, it happens twice, once in our mind and then once in reality. And this is so true. But with that, I want to add a little bit of a twist to that in terms of the visualization piece, is that I think visualization also becomes valuable when we think of the negatives. And what I mean by that is on the days that I don't want to maybe do a little more, that I think about or visualize the failure of what this is going to cost me by not doing what I need to do to reach my goal. And we know that there's research there too that shows that when we look or think to the negatives that we'll experience, it can motivate us to get back on track. So visualize those days that you're like, I don't want to get out of bed today. Then imagine yourself where you're going to be by not getting out of the bed and not reaching your goal. And what's that going to cost you long term for a short term decision right now? What are some of the benefits of visualization? They increase our clarity. They enhance our motivation. They improve our focus. They reduce our stress, which I think is really an important one to think about in terms of, I look at it, it reduces our stress because if I can visualize and imagine not only positively where my goal is going, but also I can imagine or visualize me overcoming obstacles that are going to get in my way, then this reduces my level of stress. And along those lines, it really enhances my ability to perform in this area. The last part of get is around tenacity. And to me, this is about discipline or grit. Again, we know how much research is out there as it relates to grit, and that a lot of that would suggest that grit predicts high achievement better than IQ does. So we're going to focus on the other piece of this in regards to tenacity, though, is focusing on activity and not outcomes. So if we were to go back to my goal of losing 10 pounds, the outcome is the 10 pounds. I don't really control the outcome in many ways, but I do control the activity all the time. And what I mean by that is, what are the things that I know are going to impact my ability to lose 10 pounds? Number of days that I exercise during a week. Also, the amount of calories that I consume in a day. I have full control over those. Regardless of the 10 pounds, I do have full control over those. And that is actually piggybacked off of some work that was done in a book called The Four Disciplines of Execution, where they call it lead versus lag indicators and how important that is. So what are the benefits of tenacity? They build resilience, certainly. They help us around persistence. Adaptability, I think, is a huge one. When we are in that place of tenacity or discipline or grit, then we're looking at ways to overcome. And I think of this in terms of two things: resources versus resourcefulness. We're always going to lack some resource at some point, but what we all have equal access to all the time is resourcefulness. Nobody gets any more or any less. It all depends on how somebody decides to use that is what's going to make the difference. So it's focusing on the resourcefulness and not the resources. So tenacity, discipline, and increases our level of commitment. And lastly, I think it increases our level of mastery in this area, because the more we do it, If we think about it from the standpoint of deliberate practice and 10,000 hours by somebody like Anders Ericsson and their research, that we know that when we have tenacity and discipline and we're doing on a consistent basis, we're going to become better masters at whatever that thing is. And to me, that is the vital part of this in terms of not just setting the goal right in the set model, but also what are the things that we need to do in terms of following through. As we review here, right? Get set to succeed. So we talk about gratitude, expectancy, tenacity, and then we talk about the set goal itself, which is one that's specific, it's emotional, and it's time bound. A few other things that we can do in there, aside from those 6 pillars, is that we write our goals down, how important that is. Share them with somebody that you respect. Find accountability partners, another valuable one. Make them challenging. Find ways to create habits with them. Again, set goals that are specific, emotional, and time bound. And on a daily basis, find ways to practice gratitude for your goal, visualize expectancy of reaching your goal, and then do the things that need to be done, those lead indicators, those activities on a regular basis that will create that discipline. And lastly, rise above your best. If you do these things, I promise you, the research is there. If you find ways to get set, you will succeed. Wishing you all the best. Take care.